to the Internal Wardrobe. The Internal Wardrobe is a place where we talk about all things self-love. It's really a place for you to get to know yourself better. And I'm super excited today because we have a very special guest, the amazing Alison Maiden. And I'm going to hand you over to Alison to have a chat. So I'm Jalinda. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm a personal stylist, but I also talk to people about self-love and how to feel really good about yourself in general, whether it's from the outside to the inside and from the inside to the outside. But our guest today is Alison Maiden, and she is a very well-known psychic medium and recently appeared on The Bachelor, which is pretty cool, one of my favorite trashy reality TV shows. But Alison, I'd love to hear a little bit about, for those that don't know tell me about yourself.
Well, first of all, can I just say thank you so much for having me on. I was super excited when you invited me because, of course, you're my stylist. So, you know, I'm like your biggest fan. Changed my life after coming to see you and realised that how important it is to actually look good on the outside no matter what's going on the inside, because it really does correlate, you know. So one of the things that people often ask me is, you know, how do you do what you do? And I do that because I was actually born with all of the 7 psychic senses active. Some people will have 1 or 2 or 3 of the psychic senses, and some people will have, you know, all 7. Those people are normally drawn to this type of life where we will be working with spirit, because obviously we're kind of doing it every day anyway. We're bombarded by it. And so we've got to then put that into action to help other people. But most people will have at least 1, which is the clairsentience or the feeling centre, active when they're younger. And that gives us our survival instincts and gives us that feeling of, you know, knowing what's right and what's wrong, whether or not to go into that dark room or that dark alley. You know, it's about survival when you're that age. But as you get older, you'll also get more and more in tune with things around you if you allow yourself to. So from a very young age, I was fortunate enough to be born into a family of psychics and mediums, and I think that that's why, you know, from a young age I was able to use my abilities and to develop them and become stronger. So I was reading professionally by the time I was 15 years old, and I've been doing this now over 36 years.
That's
so
incredible.
It's a bit of a long career.
And when you say doing this, so what does a psychic medium do? What are some of the things that you do as a psychic medium?
Well, psychic and medium are 2 separate things, but when you put them together, obviously, it means that you can do both. So a medium is able to speak to the spirit world. Sometimes we are able to communicate with spirits that have passed over into the actual spirit world, and some mediums will only do that because they don't feel safe in communicating with people that are here or trapped on the earth plane or the astral plane, and other mediums will be able to speak to what people call ghosts or ethereals, or, you know, the ones that are trapped here. So I actually do all of it, and spirit rescue is what I call it. Is a big part of my life. Well, I'll go out and to haunted places and go in there and have a chat to those poor souls that are trapped there, and I'll send them over to where they're meant to be. That's part of the job. The psychic part is basically being able to tap into the timelines and be able to see the outcome of certain choices that we might make in life, and that's how psychic ability works, because we always have several different things running at the same time, and your choices and your free will give you the outcome of that, you see. So being a psychic means that you can just sort of tap into that line that the person is thinking about on that particular day and give them the best outcome for that particular situation. I think what people don't realise a lot when they come to see psychics is there's no time frame in the spirit world. So when we actually get information from their guides and they're saying, oh, this is going to happen, you know, we can go, oh yeah, I can really feel this. I can feel it happening soon, but soon for spirit may be like 10 years, right? So I had a really interesting little thing there to tell you, because it actually shocked me and it made me feel quite, I suppose, humbled by the experience. Well, I had a person come back to me after 23 years. And that person was a police sergeant. When he first came to see me, he was extremely skeptical, and he'd heard about me through other people that had come for readings, and he'd written down on this piece of paper, you know, typical police sergeant, sitting there with his piece of paper, taking notes, taking everything I said down. And anyway, 23 years later, he ended up on the doorstep again. And he said, I have got my piece of paper, and it was hilarious. It was like full of holes, coffee stains, all like this old tatty bit of paper. And he ticked off everything on that list. It took 23 years for it all to happen.
Wow. And
yeah, I know, right?
That's really incredible, because I'm not sure who on here has maybe gone to see somebody that's, who had tarot done or anything like that. But time frame can be, people think when you say something that could be happening tomorrow or, you know, at the time. But like you said, 23 years for everything to be ticked off. That's incredible.
Yeah. 23 years, but I mean, you know, it's always good in hindsight too, isn't it? when we're looking back at things. And the other thing is the opportunities. You know, people say, oh, what if I don't make it now, you know, am I going to miss out? Well, if it's meant for you, it will come back around. And so that's why sometimes it can also take a bit longer, because you may decide to turn left instead of right, and right might have been the opportunity, right? So spirits spend a lot of time helping us and on our paths, on our journeys, and they're trying to line people up for you to meet. And, you know, where it comes to fate, there are certain things that we have decided to do before we incarnate, certain people that we've decided to meet, marry, have children with. All of that is happening simultaneously for spirit. They're trying to get us to go down the right path. Can you imagine the headache that they must have with some of us that just don't listen, you know? I can just imagine them going, oh, I've got to start all that again.
I think I've seen memes like that where there is a lot of face farming.
Also, so true. It's so true.
And there is those times, I think, in our lives where we do look at those, I guess we call them silver linings, where we go, oh my gosh, those pivotal moments in our lives where we could have made a different decision and it would have gone very differently. Does anything stand out there for you in terms of, you said that you were sort of born with these gifts already given to you. Was there a point in time where it was kind of pivotal where you decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do? Like, have you always been doing, mediumship in that sense?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, actually, Jalinda, because I am a very strong-minded Virgo with an 8 life path, okay? So I'm anally retentive and I'm a control freak. So that's one of my biggest problems to overcome in this lifetime. I think I'm nearly there. I think I've kind of like, my challenges have been, in this lifetime, they've been pretty interesting. Because if I want to do something and I put my mind to it, I will do it, okay? So this is where the spiritual part of me over the years has had battles with the physical world, wanting to experience this amazing stuff around me and knowing that I had to work with spirit at the same time. So I first began my career, would you believe, as a music teacher. So music was a massive part of my life growing up, and I used to sing in bands, and I'd have, music students, and I worked in a beautiful music shop. And that story is actually quite cute too, if you don't mind me sharing that one with you. So I met up with this amazing family back when I was 17, and they owned a big music shop, and he said, oh, look, I really want you on board. I want you to come and work for me. And it became a wonderful family environment where I was working for this particular gentleman for about 10 years. And then I had a time where, and everyone goes through this, I think, where you have met the challenge in what you're doing, your career path, and suddenly you think, I think I want to do something else. I think I really need to do something else. And my spiritual nature has always been to help other people. So even when I was doing music, for instance, I would be doing readings for people that I knew on the side type of thing. And this was just always throughout my life a common thread. So I was always doing 2 jobs.
And music is definitely a very spiritual creative path as well. So it was a natural fit in that way.
Yeah, and the way I looked at it was, you know, it got me used to working in front of crowds and being up front, being a lead singer in a band was, you know, like I had to get over the nerves and I had to present myself. So it was kind of training, if you like, for what I'm doing now when I look back at it. But my other passion was medicine. And my father was a doctor, and he instilled in me this sort of like, I don't know, this interest, I suppose, for the human body and the miraculous way it works. And so, you know, for me, understanding the spirit and understanding the physical, it just went together. And so I became a paramedic. And I did that for 10 years. And during that time, I loved the job so much because it gave me the challenges. It really fitted with my makeup, if you like, of what I came here to do in helping people. But they used to call me Witchy Poo because I'd always be able to predict what jobs we were going to and what was going on. And half the time, if we went to, you know, like someone who needed a resuscitation, I'd see them sitting on the bed and I'd say, no, I'm not getting back in that body. That body was horrible. So, you know,
Wow.
there were times where I'd have contact with spirit then as well. And one of these days I'll have to write a book about all this because it's quite funny, some of the stories. But we have, we're always put on the path that we need to be put on regardless of what we think is happening at the time, because there's so many wonderful lessons to be learned from those experiences and it's never wasted, you know. And so I've been able to apply my medical knowledge to when I'm doing readings for people. And often when people come through from spirit world, I'll be able to see exactly how they passed, even down to the medical terminology of what it is, because I understand it and I know what that looks like.
And I've been fortunate enough to be at some of your shows and see the accuracy of what you're saying, and even talk to some of the people afterwards and say, and they're blown away by how much detail you can get in terms of like the exact spot or the exact way that they died. It is absolutely incredible to watch. It's really, I find it very, you've seen me, I get all excited and all like, oh, this is so inspiring. It's just, oh, it's just such a gift to be able to give people as well when people have passed, you know, to be able to give them that contact again, even though potentially the contact's always there, or from what I understand, I know that when my nan passed, when at her funeral we all saw butterflies, and so every time now I see a butterfly I always think of my nan.
Yeah.
Is there things like that people can look out for when
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, we have every day actually spirit trying to give us that nudge or those messages, and it can come in different ways. And one of the common things is to be able to smell common smells that they had around them when they were here. For instance, cigarette smoke, if they were a smoker, a certain perfume. I was doing a healing on someone yesterday in the room. I had no incense or anything burning, and the room was full of this perfume. And I could see her crying during the healing, and then afterwards she said that was my mother's perfume. So it's like when you are in the state of mind of thinking about them, quite often they'll come through with little snippets of reminders of what they used to do or what they used to love. Butterflies and birds in particular are easy for them to manipulate. So because they work on vibrational energy, any creature that is like on a sonar kind of thing, you know, with vibrational energy, they will be able to communicate with quite well, because once you become spirit, you become pure vibration or just pure energy. And so they can have that influence as they do on electrical things in the house when they're switching light switches on and off, things like that. Yeah. And my TV, always, the TV's on and off, always, when they want to get my attention.
And so you were saying as you were going through, you ended up in the ambulance, so as paramedic, and helping to help people that way. And then so how did that then lead you back into doing what you're doing full time? Because I know you as doing your work full time.
Yeah, well, that's probably not a funny story, but it is a story of my stubbornness. So I knew that there would come a time where I would have to do spiritual work full time, even though I was still always doing it as a second job, if you like, after hours. And I was doing readings for people the whole time I was working for the ambulance service. But one day Spirit actually started to poke me and said, like, it's time now for you to do this full time. And I was getting more and more calls, and I had to make a choice. But I couldn't leave the service. I was just so in love with that job. And then one fateful night, because I was being stubborn, as I said, and didn't want to actually budge, there was a bit of a freak accident at one of the jobs I did, and my watch band got caught in the stretcher of a gentleman who was having a CVA, or a brain hemorrhage. He was fitting quite violently, and the stretcher went over, and my watch band got caught, and my arm was ripped out of the socket.
Oh, I see there. I'm feeling it for
you. So that was the end of my ambulance career, because I could fix them, but I couldn't lift them. So it was then they said, right, well, let's utilise your teaching skills being a teacher before I actually joined. So then I was in the college for a couple of years and teaching, but that wasn't enough for me. And I knew it was time to leave. And it was at that time that I then left and started my first shop, which was called Kindred Spirit.
What
and
a
that
great
was
name for a shop. That's beautiful.
They gave that name to me, and that, interestingly, it came back to me later, and that's yet another story. But they gave that name to me in a meditation, and I thought, oh, that's a terrific name. You know, Kindred Spirit means so much for so many people. And it started in this little tiny town in Strathalbyn in Adelaide. If people know Adelaide, they would know Strathalbyn. Beautiful town, and I had a small shop there, and I was just going to be content to be, you know, the tarot reader in the country town. I thought that was going to be my lot. And then as time went on, I had more and more people coming in, and then I had a person from the local radio station come for a reading, and she said, do you think you could do this on air? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'll give it a go, you know. And so that started off being a one-time thing that ended up being a 7-year show. And people would ring in and they would get readings. And so we were the first to do that in South Australia, and it was very, very popular. And so, you know, after that I had 3 stores in Adelaide, and it just grew from there. So I started doing live shows probably about now 15 years ago. And who inspired me in that was John Edward. I'd been to see his show, and I was the first person read. Yeah, this is what at his height of his career, I suppose, after crossing over. The television show was on, and it was the entertainment centre in Adelaide. There was about 3,500 people in there. And just looking around, I'm thinking, oh my God, look at all these amazing people who have come here. Because before him, you know, psychic mediums were like, they were charlatans in everyone's eyes and this sort of thing, and just people that would be trying to take advantage of people that were grieving, etc. But watching him and seeing the healing that was going on, and after having the reading myself, which just blew me away with the detail that he gave me, I just really had this urge inside of me to do it myself. And so I started off small, just had some small groups to see if I could do it. And then that grew to, you know, hundreds of people very fast. So, and that's now, I suppose, majority of my work is doing the live shows.
Incredible. We did get a question through from Susan, who says, nice to meet you, Alison. Can you pick up on things when you meet people for the first time? And I guess saying, like, you don't even necessarily need to meet them if you're doing it on the radio.
No, we don't have to meet face to face at all. The reason for that is people often think that you have to be in front of a medium for people to come through to you, but, you know, you're talking directly to them. You're not talking to the person that you're in front of. And so all I actually need is like a connection through to that person, meaning hearing someone's voice or even having just the intent. I often do Facebook Lives where people will just come on and ask lots of questions, and I get people coming into me that I haven't even seen the question for yet, and I'll just give lots of detail of how they pass their names, etc. And someone will go, yeah, that's my dad, or yeah, that's my uncle. So, you know, I mean, there's spirit are never stopping in their communication with me. I get day and night all the time. They're always there. In fact, if they ever stopped, I think I'd probably wonder what was wrong with them. I'll probably have to go off to the doctor and see if something was happening. Because it is very wrong. But,
have you heard of people losing their abilities?
Yes, actually. Yes. And this is a little bit like, you've got to work with integrity. You've got to do the right thing by people. If you are trying to manipulate people with information, that's really bad karma. And yes, I have heard of people being shut down because of that.
Wow. And so I still think that's so exciting that you got to be read by John Edwards and that he was someone that you were able to connect with. Did you get to talk with him after or anything like that?
Well, no, because it was the big show. But funnily enough, years later, when I was working at HIT, they were interviewing John for one of his shows here in Cairns, and they asked me if I'd like a reading with him. And so I got to have a reading with him again, and then I did have a chat. So he's a beautiful person, and he's very genuine, and he gets a lot of bad press, but he's actually extremely accurate, a very genuine person.
And I was going to talk about that a little bit later, but I guess seeing as it's sort of come up now, when it comes to obviously everybody on here, I'm guessing is open. We might have a couple of people that might be a little bit skeptical. How do you deal with that? Because I know even myself, I think as I'm going more into this sort of realm, I guess you could call it, I know some people might start to, you know, feel that little bit of judgment or feel people think you're a bit weird or a bit strange for believing in things that you can't necessarily see but that you can feel. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think what it comes down to is that everyone's on the right rung of the ladder, okay? And if you are not a believer and you don't want to venture into this side of life, that's your prerogative, and I have no issue with that. I don't force down the throat of people what I do, and I certainly don't approach people in the street and say, hi, I'm a psychic medium, I can see your dead mother behind you. And the television shows that do that just creep me out so much. It is an invasion of people's privacy, and it's completely unethical. So, you know, if you are the type of person who desperately needs to prove what you're doing or prove what you're seeing, then you're going to be probably more likely to bring things up at a dinner party to maybe get into it. But one thing that I'm really strict about is I will not be used as a person to prove to people what is going on. And I've had that happen to me where people have booked readings for their very, very skeptical husbands. And, you know, see this kind of stuff. No, that is not on. And I'll actually end the reading immediately and give them their money back and say, look, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing games with you. If people are coming to me for the right reasons, I will give them everything I have. But that I draw the line. We do have people, and have had people come to the shows before. In fact, I had one person just in the last couple of months. He came in. He's a friend of my husband. My husband, by the way, is an ex-police officer. He's retired now. He was in the job for 40 years. He was a detective. If there was anything wrong with me as far as my credibility, I'm pretty sure he would have picked it up by now. So, you know, there's certain people out there that want to say that you are, you know, ripping people off or doing to them. It's not down to them to judge. If a person comes to me for advice, that is their choice, okay? If I'm not giving them what they need, then that's between them and me, and we will sort that out. And we should never, I think, judge other people for their belief systems. But this particular fellow who I'm talking about is a friend of my husband's, worked with him for many years. He came to a live show, because he was the skeptic, didn't believe it, thought we were all charlatans, we were all ripping people off. Okay, he had the second reading of the night, and I brought through one of his best friends who had been killed. In fact, they thought it might have been suspicious. During the reading, I gave details of where he was found, down to the slate floor he was lying on. And this particular fellow afterwards said, oh my God, you have converted me. Since then, I think I've read every single family member that he's got. Wow. So, you know, sometimes it takes just something like that from spirit to shake them up. But that's not me doing it. I'm just the conduit. I'm the way that the information gets through. It's spirit that actually are doing that for him. And you're only ever good as the person you're reading.
And we got another question through, and I think I guess I've seen this at shows. A lot of the people that do follow you are the majority of women. Do you find that men are more skeptical?
Yes. Yeah, but, you know, in saying that, over the years, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. I've had the odd fella come in, you know, here and there, but just lately we're getting a lot more. which is really wonderful. And it's just a sign of the times, you know, the ascension, people waking up. But men think differently to women, as we know. You know, we feel more, they think more. It's the way that they're wired, and they can't always help that. But you find that most people are actually, once you start talking about the science behind this, there's been a lot of proof. I actually had my brain wired up once because they were just trying to really work out how all this worked. And I was more than happy to have that done. And that was in a university study back in Adelaide. But one thing that did happen when I was channeling is that they could see I was using my left brain and my right brain at the same time, which apparently is really unusual, because we usually use our left or our right, you know, if we're thinking about different things, creative or scientifically speaking. But because I've probably got both sides of the brain, you know, like I have got the spiritual, but I've also got the science with my background, it would be linking in together to show, you know, that information.
Incredible. And I know you were saying before about sort of how things go full circle, and you were saying about how you went from, you know, doing music teaching into into being a paramedic, then having your own shop, and being so successful throughout Adelaide, and now you're based in Cairns, still traveling when you can. So how did you end up coming to Cairns?
Well, funny story. So I ended up coming up here because of my husband. So he and I, remember that story I told you about where I was working with the music family and, you know, when I was 17. So that lovely fellow that I was working for there ends up being the father of my husband. And so I was back there. I didn't actually meet him back then because he was off becoming a policeman and doing things then. And then throughout our life, sliding door moments, you know, we kept sort of bumping into each other through different things. And then finally, about 5 years ago, we went out for dinner as friends, and then it was like an instant change to the situation, and we just looked at each other and went, oh my God, this is it, you know. So we had been in each other's lives, just about all our lives, but when we finally came together at the end of the day, when it was the right timing, I was always told that I'd meet the love of my life when I was 50. That was something that I was told years ago when I had a reading when I was 15 years old. When you're 15, you're told that, you're thinking, oh my God, what am I in for? You know. But at 50, and the funny thing was, Spirit had a sense of humour. I had my 50th birthday party, and that was the night we actually got.
Wow. And also, what a great thing to be able to look towards 50, because so many people are worried about their age, and
I know, right?
Be like, can't wait till I get 50.
I never have an issue with age, it's only a number. I'm happy to tell everyone my age. But what I think is that, you know, if something is meant to be, it will be, no matter what you try and do to avoid it or miss out or whatever. We sort of joke around about the fact that what would have happened if we'd actually got together back then when I was 17, you know. But I think that we were ready now to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be, and have matured to that point where we, you know, really, really are a great fit. And he's my soulmate. He's the most amazing man, and I love him dearly. And he's the reason I'm here in Cairns, because he had retired from the police force to come up here to do a job at the university. And he said, you know, how do you feel about living in Cairns? And I thought, oh, I've never thought about it really. But I got off the plane and, oh, the energy here and the people, and I just fell in love straight away. And I knew this is where I had to be. And the funny thing is, Jalinda, I came up here to retire.
Oh, that's not what's happened at all.
That is not what happened.
Oh my gosh, you're busier than ever.
Yeah, it went in the opposite direction, but hey, that's okay. It's meant to be.
And obviously you said you had a reading done when you were 15. We had a question come through from Natalie saying, is there a certain age that you think people can have a reading? For example, she's mentioned that she's got a 16-year-old that would be interested in having a reading. Do you read people that young, or is there
only with parental consent? And it's really down to, if you're going to pick a reader, you need somebody who is very legitimate, and you need to make things quite clear. with them before the reading. So, I mean, this is back in the day, you know, I'm an old girl these days, but what happened back then was we could just go and do whatever we wanted when we were 15. Do you remember back when you were 15, people in my age group, it's a lot different to what it is now, you know. Our 20-year-olds are still living at home thinking that we can wash and clean for them. Back then we were out, you know, doing our own thing at 15, working and doing all the stuff that they should be doing. But when I went to see this reader, I always had this strong spiritual connection, you know, with my family and everything. So it wasn't unusual for our family to get readings done. And this lady was hilarious. She was about 70, deaf as a post, and used to read tea leaves. And she shouted at me for the whole hour. She was very accurate. In fact, everything she said happened. So, yeah, it was quite an amazing experience at that age. But it did set, I suppose, in me that there were certain times that she spoke about in my life that I would find joy or peace, or I'd have something happen. I mean, she virtually did a whole life reading for me that day and told me at different ages about things. And when I was going through some really dark times, because I mean, as a psychic medium or as any spiritual teacher or leader will tell you, we are not immune to the bad stuff in life. In fact, quite the opposite. We usually end up with a lot more of it because we have to learn to cope with that to help other people to cope with it. So when I had those experiences with her at 15, I just remembered back in the bad times that it was going to get better and it was all going to be okay and I was going to get through it.
That's a wonderful way to look at life in general, isn't it, when we go through things? So if somebody was wanting to go and get some information, that's something to remember, isn't it? That it's not necessarily, you know, all doom and gloom. It's to help you see the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess.
Well, absolutely. And that's the other thing about, you know, when you pick a reader, make sure that they're, you know, they work with integrity for a start. If you've got a very young person hearing information about their life, I mean, they're very impressionable. They take that on board. You must be able to, you know, probably hold a little bit back. You wouldn't probably give them as much as you give an adult because an adult would be able to cope with things a lot better, but really sort of target it for their age. And they usually just want to know about boyfriends and their love life. And, you know, all those sorts of really important things when you're 15.
Every teenager, that's all they're interested about, isn't it? Yeah.
Pretty much.
And the other thing that I think is really interesting, you teach people how to uncover their psychic gifts.
Yeah.
And you mentioned at the start that you have the seven of these psychic abilities. If you could run us through the 7, I think that would be really awesome.
Yeah, sure. So we have clairvoyancy, probably is the most common one that people hear about because, you know, people actually advertise themselves as clairvoyant. So clairvoyancy is about clear seeing, which is the third eye, which is those images that you get in your mind's eye. When you are dreaming, you're using your third eye. When you are seeing colours, when you close your eyes, you're using your third eye. So the third eye is actually the pineal gland, which is a tiny gland in the centre of your brain. And it's, believe it or not, it's actually filled with water and the same little cells called rods and cones, which are in your physical eyes. So it literally is a third eye in the centre of your brain. The really interesting thing about this is that rods and cones are there to pick up light, so that when the light comes into your eye, they will pick up the light and they will form images or pictures of what you're seeing and give that to the brain as a message. So why in the middle of your brain do we have an eye-like gland that have got these little cells in there when there's no light, obviously, in the centre of your brain? So when you think about it that way, it's actually picking up the spiritual light or the conduit of light coming through the crown chakra at the top of your head, and that's where you get the images from the other dimensions. So that's clairvoyancy. Then you have clairsentience, which is clear feeling. And clairsentience is about those feelings of dread or good or things that are about to come up. So it's like a preemptive thing. We have clear empathy, which is where you can feel the emotions of other people around you. So you can walk into a room, be really happy and you're really up, and then all these people around you are in a bad mood, and all of a sudden you're going to feel like you're in the bad mood. It's not yours, it's theirs. That's clear empathy. We have clairgustance, which is not one of my favourite ones to have, believe me. It is fairly rare, but we can taste. So, yeah, and I get like, get this a lot at shows where people have had a favourite food, and 9 times out of 10 it's onions or something disgusting like that, and I can taste it in my mouth, and we chat about that. But there's a very quick sideline to that one. One show I could taste peanut butter and banana sandwich. It was so clear. And I could taste this so clearly. And I was talking about a 3-year-old that had passed. And so even though they couldn't communicate verbally very well, I could actually taste their favourite food. And she said that's what they used to live on. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches was the staple. So that kind of thing is like a message in itself, There's a clairaudience, or we jokingly call it clairsmelliance, because it's actually that smell I was talking about before, where you might have a loved one that had a particular scent or a smell that was around them all the time, and that will remind you of them. So it's smelling those smells. Interestingly too, the olfactory nerve in the brain is right next to the memory centre. So smells will often trigger memories and vice versa. So where are we up to? We've got that on that one, and we have claircognizance, which is the ability to be able to literally think about your day and know what's going to happen. So it's clear knowing, okay? So if you're going into a situation that you're not happy about, you can actually project into that line, meaning that you can have a look down that path and see what the outcome's going to be. So that claircognizance is more common than what you think. People don't actually realise they have that one, but it's a really common one. And then we have clairtangency, which is touch. So it's like being touched by spirit. You can feel tingles all over your body sometimes when they're around. One thing we do get is what we call confirmation, is when they give you the big shiver down the spine, and that's their confirmation going, yes, I agree with what's being said here. But sometimes you'll be able to feel their touch. You'll be able to feel their hair pull. I was actually in a haunted place the other night. You might remember that.
I do. I was there. It was scary.
We have never had more of a laugh at Jalinda and all these ghosts around her and going, I can really feel this. It was pretty funny, but not for you, obviously, probably. But yeah,
I was with protective people. It was
we protected you.
We walked into this place. It was about 100 years old, and it hadn't been touched in all that time. So there were these old bathrooms, and as we walked past, Alison's like, oh yeah, there's 4 ghosts or 4 spirits down the end of the hall, and I'm looking like, can I see them? Like, where are they?
And there was a big loud crash.
Yeah, there was a loud crash. There was banging. There was weird noises, and I was standing in this sort of hallway area, and I felt like what felt like a little scratch down my back, and I turned around, and there was like this old empty bathroom, and Alison's son was so sweet. Alison saying, it's okay, we're here, we've got you. And Alison's son's like, here, take my beads. He had these the special beads of his, and I did start to calm down, and then I was more curious. I'm like, where are these ghosts? And I was pushing open doors, that doors would close. You
got very brave. Yes.
It was pretty spooky. I got brave after that.
So there you go. So that's an example. So you actually have clairtangency because you could feel that scratch down the back. There we are. So that's one you can tick off your list.
Can tick off. And I think women, if for any mums on here as well, you do get that kind of motherly instinct, and I guess that's what you were saying about that feeling sense. That's the clairsentience.
Yeah. And the other one that is quite common too is the clairaudience, which is where you can actually hear spirits speaking. Now, I've had this all my life, so it's never been any different for me. And at times I will say things out loud because I'm hearing someone talk to me, and I'll, now that the whole family know, what it's about, so they ignore me. But I'll have to sometimes like stop myself from saying things when I'm out in public because I think I'm absolutely nuts and talking to the invisible person, which of course I am. But this is the whole point about it, is it sounds the same as someone else talking to you. And the other side of that one is they can drop information into your brain. So they can actually give you words, or they can give you sentences that will just come out of nowhere. And that's also another form of clairaudience.
People like learn them, or are they kind of part gift, or you can develop the ability? How does that work?
Sure. Look, we're all inherently wired to be psychic. and it's in our DNA. It's just been shut down by centuries of persecution and fear. If you've had past lives like I have, being burnt at the stake because you're, called a witch or whatever, that can often block off those abilities in you. And so by healing the past and healing past lives, you can develop that. The tool that I use, and all of my students when they come on board end up doing, is Reiki, because it is the most amazing healing tool that I've ever found in my life. And I used to be a spiritual healer for many years before I actually was introduced to it. And in my, that stubborn streak I've got, I told you about, yeah. So in the younger years, I'm like, I don't need to do Reiki. Everyone's doing Reiki. I don't need to do that. And so when I actually was introduced to a Reiki master and he said, just come along and see the difference, I thought, oh, I've got nothing to lose. I'll do that. Wow, it blew my mind. It opened me up more than I've ever been before. And so I knew that it wasn't just about giving healing to people, it was actually healing me as well. And this is the beauty of it, is that the more healing that you give others, the more you receive. And then all those blocks and things that have been put in place over centuries, they start to lift. So your intuition opens up, your psychic abilities open up, and you can start to see and feel and do more.
When I was 16, I found a breast lump. It wasn't cancerous, but I had a beautiful friend who was a Reiki master, and he offered to help me with it. And they said at the time it was the size of a golf ball. And through the process of Reiki, we got it down to the size of a marble. So I was still nervous and decided to go through with surgery. He was like, we won't need to. It's nearly gone. Let me, give me another few months. He did that in about 3 months. And when I went in for the surgery, and they tried to say that the original ultrasounds were wrong, that it couldn't have been the size of a golf ball because what they pulled out was a marble. And
they always say that.
Yeah, I'm a true 100% believer in the ability to heal ourselves and attune with things like Reiki. I think they're really powerful modalities that we can introduce into our lives, like you said, not only through helping to heal other people, but heal ourselves at the same time, which is...
Well, it's all about vibration, and lifting the vibration around you. And so if you're in a negative frame of mind and you've been around negative people, it's going to, take that vibration right down, where you're starting to feel like you're being manipulated by others, and you'll start to feel like, oh, I've got to be defensive here, and I've got to argue back, and all of a sudden you find yourself in this loop of negativity that's really hard to get out of. So you've actually lowered your vibration down to their level. But with Reiki, if we can actually, give ourselves that healing at the time, and we recognize what's going on, and of course, I'm not really this negative normally. It's the situation I'm in or the people that I'm around. Give ourselves the healing. There's also symbols that we use, which are protective symbols, and they can actually help you to get out of bunks. They can help you to maintain positiveness in your life, to give you, protection around your home and your family and your children. It gives us the ability to do something about the energy that we're in, and that's what I've found to be, being that anal Virgo that I told you about. I think that is very necessary to be able to have a little bit of control. It's really nice, but doing it in a good way. We're not controlling for manipulation or negative purposes. We're actually controlling the energy in a positive way, so to get the best outcome for the person that we're trying to help.
And obviously we're getting very close to the end. I could talk to you for hours. I think we do in general. So. But when it comes to what am I thinking of? You use a lot of different modalities, and that I know of. And if I mention some of them, and obviously these, I believe that everything is to get us to sort of look within ourselves.
Yes.
And all of these different things that you use are often ways to help people in. I think I mentioned that we had Donna Johnston on the last webinar, and for anyone watching, you can jump onto YouTube, that's there, and she was talking about astrology. And so astrology is one of the tools that you use, along with numerology, and obviously like tarot, and Reiki. What else are ways that you've used? Meditation?
Yeah, look, I mean, meditation is really vital for people to be able to switch off from the third dimensional world. Turn your TVs off, by the way, guys. Honestly, there's nothing on that. It spews out rubbish every day. There's nothing to be believed on it either. The world's in a much better place than what you currently are being told, okay? We're going through transformation. The awakening is happening. People are waking up to what we should be doing for us, not what other people are telling us what to do, okay? So it all comes back to yourself. If you are in a good place, if you are happy with you, then you're spilling out the love to other people and you're able to cope with your life so much better. Meditation will do that for you. Reiki, of course, is a wonderful tool to be able to help yourself as well. But the tools of the trade is what I call the tarot, the numerology. I mean, I would never, ever pretend to be an astrologer. Astrology is something I'm fascinated by. I love it, but that's why I have someone awesome like Donna on board, because she knows it back to front. Donna's actually going to be our astrologer on our new website, which is called Find My Soulmate. And that's about being able to help people who are looking for real connection, real love, real friendships. And that's going to be launched early next year. We're going to be helping people through matching their date of birth for numerology and astrology combined with potential other people who are interested in the same thing. And it's not just about finding love, it's also about finding compatibility in groups and things like that. So that's something that I've found over the years is really sadly missing. People are wanting to connect to what we call their vibe tribe, okay? When you're around other people that have the same vibration, you grow and you feel good and you feel like you're home. You feel like you've made it back to where you belong. So I think it's really important for people to understand that now. If you're not feeling that, then go and look for it, search for it, find your vibe tribe, get out there and be more positive about what's happening, because to be honest with you, it all starts with you. If everyone on this planet actually changed to be loving and compassionate and open, there wouldn't be a problem on the planet at all.
That's so true. And for those that are interested in working with you, I know we got a question from somebody saying that they've signed up for your tarot. You have a tarot card workshop. You have so many workshops. Tarot card one is one of them. And also, are you available for readings? This person's asking specifically in Cairns and saying like their guardian angels are sort of directing them to you. I know that your wait list for one-on-one readings is crazy long, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, guys, I apologise. I wish, in fact, my personal assistant says to me, I wish I could clone you. We can't get to everyone. There's only one of me. And I do have to watch burnout. I have to be very careful about when the energy comes through my body has to be kept at a very high vibrational rate. I have to take care of myself. Otherwise, I'm not going to be delivering the messages accurately as I would want to. And I'm a perfectionist, so I need to do it as best I can. So I must make sure that, whatever I'm giving 100%. So we do have a couple of things probably I would say to people. Firstly, people want one-on-ones because they think they're going to be guaranteed of getting exactly who they want and when they want it. And there is no guarantee. Nobody can say to you, we're going to get through who you want to talk to, because it's not up to us. It's up to spirit, and it's up to the person that wants to contact you if they're ready. Some people are never ready. That's the other thing. So, it's not down to the medium. So don't shoot the medium if they can't bring through the person you want, all right? But which may be an alternative if people want to come and see me. If you are meant to get a reading, you will get one. It doesn't matter whether there's 100 people in the room or 3 people in the room. You will get the reading if it's meant for you, okay? And when I do the live shows, I think you've been to a couple now, I do allow for question time at the end, which no one else does, because they know how hard it is to go from one person to the next. But I believe that, if we can help as many people as possible in those spaces, it's important. So I usually do around about 10 actual readings at a live show, and then I get people to ask questions, and I'll do as many of those as I can before I'm worn out. So the next show in Palm Cove in Cairns is on the 14th of November. The tickets are selling, and we have already nearly filled up half for November. So, because of COVID, we are limited in the amount of people we can put in a room. And so, if you want to get in and get a ticket for that, it's just a case of going to the website. I think it's alisonmaiden.com, and you just click onto the booking system, and it will show you upcoming events, and it's called An Evening with Spirit. and that's happening in Palm Cove on the 14th. For anyone that's watching from interstate, we have one in Sydney on the 12th of December as well, and that's a big show. So Donna, get your friends together, come along. I'd love to have you there. Yeah. Yeah, but I think that, you know, if you go onto the website, all of those things are listed. There is a very long waiting list for one-on-one readings now, and we do not take any more names because it's just impossible. If we are going to put readings up, they will go onto the Facebook page on the day, and it's first in, best dress. So
and your Facebook is Alison Maiden?
Psychic medium, yeah.
Oh, psychic medium, and your website's alisonmaiden.com, isn't it, as well?
We also have a newsletter for those who aren't on Facebook and don't want to be, and that's fair enough, you know. And if they register for the newsletter, any of the upcoming readings will also be sent out on the newsletter. You'll get that in your inbox first thing in the morning, and sometimes you'll get that information before it goes on Facebook. Whenever we release dates, it's because we've been able to manage to slip a new day in my schedule. So we are trying. But at this stage, because we've got filming coming up for the new TV show as well, it's just been very, very hard to plan out next year and actually give people accurate dates. But I can tell you now it's probably going to be at least a year.
I want to thank everybody for coming today, especially my guest, Alison Maiden. Thank you for joining us for the Internal Wardrobe, and we look forward to seeing you for the next episode, which we'll be talking about meditation. So I'll have those dates up very soon. So thank you very much, Alison.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.